Tonight, before you drift into sleep, imagine yourself walking slowly through an old street in London. A soft night mist settles gently upon the stone pavement. The distant bells of Big Ben echo across the dark, mirror-like waters of the River Thames. Golden lamps shimmer upon the surface of the river, glowing like memories from thousands of years of history that have never completely disappeared. And somewhere beneath your feet, an entire buried world still rests below. Ancient Roman roads, medieval marketplaces, victims of plague, wartime bomb shelters, the footsteps of merchants, kings, prisoners, sailors, and millions of human beings who once lived, loved, feared, and vanished from this world. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every ancient city resembles the human mind. Beneath its modern and busy surface, deeper layers of memory always remain. Things that once burned to ashes, things that were forgotten, fears, hopes, and dreams that still quietly exist beneath the surface of time. And perhaps, nowhere in the world reflects this more clearly than London, a city that has collapsed many times and risen again, a city that was once built by the Romans, attacked by the Vikings, devastated by plague, consumed by the Great Fire, and shaken beneath the bombs of war. Yet somehow, London still remains, not merely as a city, but as a living organism shaped by the memories of millions of people across thousands of years. Tonight, we will walk together through ancient Roman streets, medieval bridges covered in mist, coffee houses where modern science was born, underground stations that once became wartime shelters, and the hidden layers of the city still sleeping beneath modern London. But this will not only be a journey through history, it will also be a journey into understanding how human beings build memory, how civilizations face collapse, and why a city can resemble the human mind in such a strange and beautiful way. If you love deeply reflective historical stories, the mysteries of time, gentle journeys that soothe the mind before sleep, and perspectives touched by Jungian psychology, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Stories for Sleep, a place where history, psychology, and stories of humanity blend together within the slow rhythm of the night. And before we begin our journey through 2,000 years of London's history, take a quiet moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment sharing where in the world you are listening from tonight. Now, dim the lights a little more, relax your shoulders, take one slow breath, and step gently into London, the city of memories that have never truly fallen asleep, the city of layers of memory. Perhaps one of the strangest things about London is the fact that this city has never truly disappeared. It has burned, it has been abandoned, it has drowned beneath plague, bombs, riots, and long nights filled with fear. But somehow, London always returns. As though beneath the ancient stones, the hidden rivers, and the grey mist drifting over the Thames, something continues beating very slowly, like the heartbeat of memory itself. Imagine a quiet night in modern London. Red buses still glide through rain-soaked streets. Golden reflections shimmer upon the dark pavement. The distant sound of underground trains echoes softly beneath the earth. Everything appears so modern, so alive, so completely now. But from the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, nothing truly exists, only in the present. Every ancient city resembles the human mind, built from layers of memory stacked upon one another through time. Perhaps that is why London feels so strangely deep, because beneath its crowded streets, there still remain the footsteps of Roman soldiers, the ashes of the Great Fire, the wartime shelters of the Blitz, and the bones of people who lived here thousands of years ago. If we think deeply enough, London does not feel like a city built only once. It feels like a living creature endlessly rebuilding itself. One version of London dies, another rises above it, and then again, it burns, collapses, changes, and is reborn. According to Jung, The human mind works in much the same way. We do not truly erase the past. We simply build newer layers above it. Old memories, love, loss, fear, and pain never completely disappear. They simply rest deeper beneath the surface of consciousness. Perhaps that is why walking through London sometimes feels almost like walking through an ancient mind. Imagine yourself moving slowly through the city of London at midnight. Cold wind from the Thames drifts through narrow alleyways. Modern glass buildings reflect pale moonlight, yet somewhere beneath the ground there still remain Roman foundations, fragments of ancient walls, and streets once crowded with merchants nearly 2,000 years ago. According to Jung, the collective unconscious preserves layers of memory far older than we realize. Perhaps London itself is a physical symbol of that truth, a place where the past never truly disappears. If we continue thinking a little longer, the most fascinating thing about London is not simply how old it is, but how it always survives. The Romans once built Londinium as a small trading settlement. Then the city was burned during the rebellion of Queen Boudica. Afterward, the Romans built it again, stronger, larger. Then the Roman Empire collapsed. London weakened, but it did not die. The Anglo-Saxons returned. The Vikings attacked. New kings arrived and disappeared. Yet somehow, the city continued living beside the Thames. According to Jung, every living being carries a deep instinct for survival. Perhaps London has endured for so long because it resembles a body constantly adapting to trauma. If one part is destroyed, another grows in its place. If the age changes, London changes with it. And if we think gently enough, perhaps the most beautiful thing about London is the fact that it does not try to erase its wounds. It keeps them. A cathedral rebuilt upon old ashes, an underground station that once served as a bomb shelter, a modern square resting above a plague cemetery. According to Jung, true healing is not forgetting the past. It is learning how to live beside it. Perhaps London has somehow been doing that for thousands of years. If we stand before St. Paul's Cathedral on a fog-filled evening, its enormous white dome rises softly through the golden light. It becomes difficult to imagine that the city surrounding it was once entirely consumed by fire in 1666. Yet from those ashes, a new London was born. According to Jung, rebirth always walks beside collapse. There can be no true transformation unless something old first disappears. Perhaps that is why London feels both sorrowful and hopeful at once, because it constantly reminds humanity that everything is fragile, and yet everything may still be rebuilt. If we think deeply enough, London is also a city of historical ghosts, not in a supernatural sense, but in the way memory continues lingering within space itself. A street once filled with screams during plague years, a bridge where the heads of the executed were once displayed, a station where thousands hid during the Second World War. According to Jung, the places human beings inhabit often absorb the emotions of what once happened there. Perhaps that is why some places in London feel strangely heavy, while others feel almost peaceful, as though the city itself still remembers. Imagine a rainy night in Victorian London. Coal smoke covers the sky. The streets overflow with poor labourers, merchants, wandering children, and horse-drawn carriages rolling across wet stone roads. Now imagine, at the same time, that above those very same streets today glow neon lights, modern trains, and people hurrying through the night while staring into their phones. According to Jung, modern people often believe they are separate from the past, but in truth, we are always walking upon layers of history far older than ourselves. And perhaps nowhere makes that feeling clearer than London. If we continue reflecting, what makes London different may not only be its age, but its ability to hold many versions of itself at once. A modern city, a medieval city, a Roman city, a wartime city, all existing simultaneously within one another. According to Jung, human beings are the same. We are not only the present version of ourselves. Inside each person there still lives the child we once were, old memories, pains that never fully vanished, and fragments of identity shaped by different seasons of life. Perhaps that is why London moves so many people emotionally, without them fully understanding why. Because it reflects the very structure of the human soul. If you stand upon Tower Bridge near midnight, cold wind from the Thames drifts across the dark water. The sounds of the city grow distant, and somewhere within that darkness, you almost feel that London has never completely fallen asleep. Its layers of memory still quietly remain beneath every stone. According to Jung, the past never disappears. It simply sinks deeper into the unconscious. Perhaps London is one of the few places in the world where human beings can almost feel that truth instinctively. And if we think gently enough, the story of London is not merely a story about history. It is a story about memory, loss, change, and the possibility of rebirth after devastation. Every civilization eventually faces war, disease, fire, and time itself. Yet London quietly shows that what allows a city to survive is not that it was never destroyed, but that it always finds a way to continue afterward. Perhaps that is also a profound lesson for human beings themselves, that we are not strong because we have never fallen apart. We are strong because somehow, after everything, we continue rebuilding ourselves. As the night grows deeper over the ancient rooftops of London, distant bells echo once more through the mist. The final trains disappear beneath the earth. The Thames continues flowing slowly, just as it has for thousands of years. And somewhere beneath that modern city, the older layers of London still sleep quietly in darkness, not completely gone, only quietly waiting to be remembered one more time. The Roman beginning, the birth of Londinium. Perhaps the strangest thing about the birth of London is the fact that, at that moment in time, no one could possibly have imagined that a small settlement beside the River Thames would one day become one of the most influential cities in human history. If you imagine yourself standing in southern Britain nearly 2,000 years ago, there is no Big Ben, no steel bridges, no glowing lights reflecting across the river at night. Only cold mist, mud and earth, dense forests, and the slow-moving Thames beneath the grey northern sky. The land is still wild, quiet, and almost no one realizes that someday millions of people will live beside this river bend. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every great civilization often begins from something very small: a road, a river, a place where human beings remain long enough to begin creating memory. Perhaps Londinium began in exactly that way, not as a dream of empire, simply as a convenient place to cross a river. And if we think deeply enough, the Romans did not choose that location by accident. The Thames there was narrow enough to build a bridge across, yet still deep enough for ships to travel through. And in the ancient world, to control a bridge meant controlling trade, armies, and the flow of power itself. Perhaps every great city is born from movement, people passing through, goods passing through, ideas passing through, and slowly, a place begins to matter. If we imagine the first Roman bridge stretching across the Thames, it would not possess the grand beauty of London's bridges today. It was likely only wood, posts driven deep into mud, the soft sound of water striking the structure, and endless streams of travelers crossing back and forth. But according to Jung, there are symbols that quietly change the course of human history. And the bridge is one of them, because a bridge does not merely connect two riverbanks. It connects people to people, lands to lands, and eventually entire civilizations to one another. Perhaps that was the moment London truly began to exist, not when the Romans gave it a name, but when human beings first began meeting there. If we continue reflecting, Roman Londinium must have been a very strange place. A new city rising at the northern edge of an empire. People arrived from everywhere. Soldiers, merchants, sailors, slaves, craftsmen, and Roman officials. Many spoke different languages. They carried with them beliefs, memories, and cultures from across the vast empire. According to Jung, every great city eventually becomes a kind of physical, collective unconscious. A place where many different souls leave traces behind. Perhaps Londinium carried that quality from the very beginning. A place that did not fully belong to anyone, yet simultaneously belonged to everyone who passed through it. If you imagine walking into Londinium during the 1st century, you would hear horses pulling carts across dirt roads, merchants bargaining loudly, metal clashing near the docks, and the smells of fish, coal smoke, leather, wine, and the cold, damp breath of the river. It was not an elegant city. It was alive, noisy, filled with mud and motion. But somewhere within that chaos, something deeply important was forming, the first heartbeat of London. According to Jung, every identity is created through repetition. A road, traveled enough times, becomes a street. A harbor crowded enough becomes the center of a world. Perhaps London was born not from a single moment, but from millions of repeated footsteps beside the Thames. And if we think gently enough, the most beautiful thing about Londinium is the fact that, from the very beginning, it was already the city of mixture. The Romans brought law, engineering, architecture, and military order. Yet the land itself had belonged to Celtic tribes long before their arrival. According to Jung, every civilization is created through the collision between the old and the new. No identity is ever truly pure. Perhaps, from its earliest days, London learned how to survive by absorbing different influences, and perhaps that became the secret that allowed it to endure for thousands of years afterward. If you imagine night falling over Londinium, torches burn along narrow streets, soft waves strike wooden docks, Roman soldiers stand guard near the bridge, and somewhere within that darkness, a young city dreams quietly of a future it cannot yet understand. But then, everything suddenly changes. According to history, Queen Boudica led a rebellion against Rome around 60 AD, and Londinium became one of its targets. If we imagine that scene, we see black smoke covering the sky, fire swallowing wooden homes, screams, collapse, and panic spreading through the young city. Perhaps Londinium believed then that everything was over. According to Jung, every great transformation passes through destruction. Sometimes, an old structure must burn away, so that something stronger can emerge afterward. Perhaps that was the first moment London learned the lesson that would follow it for thousands of years, that survival and rebirth always walk together. If we think deeply enough, what is remarkable is that the Romans did not abandon Londinium after the disaster. They rebuilt it, larger, stronger, more fortified. Walls were raised, roads were widened, stone structures replaced many of the old wooden buildings. According to Jung, after trauma, human beings often try to create a stronger sense of safety than before. Perhaps the Roman walls surrounding London were not merely military structures, they were the psychological response of a civilization that had witnessed its own fragility. If you stand before the remaining fragments of London's Roman walls today, you feel something strangely emotional, because those stones have existed for nearly 2,000 years. They have witnessed the fall of the Roman Empire, the arrival of the Vikings, plague, the Great Fire, the bombings of world wars, and modern London rising around them. According to Jung, some symbols survive as keepers of memory. Perhaps London's Roman walls are exactly that, a quiet reminder that every city is built upon the ashes of its own past. If we continue reflecting, modern London still carries far more of ancient Londinium within it than most people realize. Some modern streets still follow ancient Roman routes. Some bustling financial districts once served as commercial centers of the empire. According to Jung, the past rarely disappears completely. It simply changes shape. Perhaps every step taken through modern London still unknowingly follows the footsteps of people who died thousands of years ago. If we imagine a Roman merchant standing beside the Thames at sunset, he could never have imagined that this place would one day become the capital of a global empire. Underground trains would move beneath the earth, and millions of people from across the world would call London home. But maybe he would still recognize one familiar thing. The river continues flowing exactly as it always has. According to Jung, beneath every transformation of civilization, older rhythms still remain. Water, memory, movement, and the human need to connect with one another. Perhaps that is why London never truly died, because even when it was still Londinium, it had already been born as a place of meeting. A place where people, goods, war, culture, and memory constantly passed through one another, like the waters of the Thames that never stop flowing. As night falls over ancient Londinium, torches shimmer upon the dark river. The final footsteps fade from the wooden bridge, and somewhere within the cold mist of the Roman north, a young city quietly sleeps, never knowing that, many centuries later, the world would still remember its name. London, the post-Roman era, and the Vikings. One of the saddest moments in the history of London was when the Roman Empire departed. There was no tragic music, no official day when everything suddenly ended. Only, slowly, the city began growing quieter. Roads, once crowded with merchants, became emptier. Roman barracks slowly stood abandoned. The stone walls still remained, but the power that once protected them had vanished southward toward distant Rome. If you imagine yourself standing inside Londinium during the 5th century, you would feel a very strange kind of emptiness. A city once connected to an enormous empire had suddenly become an isolated frontier. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every civilization carries within itself a fear of abandonment. And when central power disappears, everything that once felt eternal suddenly reveals its fragility. Perhaps London first learned this truth when Rome withdrew. If we think deeply enough, the Romans once believed their empire would last forever. Stone roads, massive walls, law, armies, everything seemed invincible. But then, like every civilization in history, Rome eventually weakened. According to Jung, every structure that grows too large eventually confronts its own shadow, ambition, exhaustion, and decay from within. Perhaps, when Rome left Britain, London did not only lose soldiers, it lost its certainty about the future. If we imagine the final inhabitants of Londinium, they likely still walked the same old streets, but with growing uncertainty. Who would protect the city? Who would repair the bridge? Who would keep trade alive? And what happens when a city born from connection is suddenly cut off from the world that once sustained it? According to Jung, human beings often feel most lost when familiar structures disappear. Perhaps post-Roman London experienced a similar crisis of identity. And yet, if we continue reflecting, the fascinating thing is that London did not completely vanish. It became smaller, weaker, less populated, quieter. But somewhere among the old walls, life continued. According to Jung, every living thing carries a deep instinct for survival. Even when one part collapses, something inside still quietly wishes to continue existing. Perhaps that is why London did not die with the Roman Empire. It merely slept for a while. Imagine mist settling upon ancient Roman ruins, wild grass growing between cracked stones, public baths slowly decaying, Latin gradually disappearing from the streets, and then a new world slowly beginning to form around those ruins. The Anglo-Saxons arrived. They established a new settlement outside the old Roman walls. called Londonwick. According to Jung, after every collapse, the human mind always attempts to rebuild itself in a new form. Perhaps Londonwick was the first reborn version of London, no longer a Roman city, but something different. Is smaller, closer to the sea, more practical, and better suited to the new world emerging across England. If you imagine Londonwick in the morning, you would see wooden ships anchored by the river, fishermen, Saxon merchants, and small straw-roofed houses standing close together within the cold mist. The old Roman order had vanished. Everything felt rougher, more natural, yet strangely alive. According to Jung, when old structures collapse, the primitive part of humanity often returns. Perhaps post-Roman Britain experienced exactly that, a world with less empire, but closer to survival instinct itself. And if we think gently enough, the beautiful thing about London is the fact that it always learned how to adapt to each new age. Rome leaves, London changes. The world becomes unstable, London shrinks in order to survive. Perhaps the true secret of this city does not lie in strength, but in transformation. According to Jung, what survives the longest is rarely what is most rigid. It is what knows how to change, without losing its inner core. If you imagine a winter night in Londonwick, cold wind moves through small wooden homes. Fire burns inside long halls. Stories are told in darkness, and somewhere beyond the North Sea, a new threat approaches: the Vikings. According to history, London was both wealthy and strategically important. That made it almost impossible to ignore. According to Jung, everything valuable eventually attracts both desire and violence. Perhaps London learned the price of wealth very early in its existence. If we imagine Viking longships appearing upon the Thames, we see fog, oars cutting through water, round shields hanging along wooden hulls, and fear spreading through riverside settlements. The Vikings were not merely pirates. They were merchants, warriors, and seekers of opportunity within a chaotic world. But to London, they brought a deeply ancient feeling that all safety can be broken at any moment. According to Jung, the shadow of civilization always appears in the form of chaos arriving from outside. Perhaps, for London during that age, the Vikings became the embodiment of that truth. And if we think deeply enough, what is interesting is that as danger increased, London returned inside the old Roman walls. The walls, once forgotten, suddenly became necessary again. According to Jung, during times of instability, human beings often returned to ancient structures that once protected them. Perhaps London did this almost unconsciously. It returned to Roman memory in search of safety. If you stood upon London's walls during that time, you would see watchfires burning in the night, guards observing the river, and constant anxiety about the next attack. But simultaneously, you would also witness something remarkable. The city continued living. Markets still opened. Ships still arrived. People still loved, traded, and raised children within an unstable world. According to Jung, this is perhaps the strangest thing about humanity. Even in chaos, we continue building life. Perhaps London survived for so long because its people never completely surrendered to fear. If we continue reflecting, one of the most important figures of this era was Alfred the Great. He did not merely fight the Vikings. He understood that if England wished to survive long-term, it needed order, defense, and a stable center of power. And London became the heart of that vision. According to Jung, every society needs a central symbol, a place where people can place their collective hope. Perhaps this was the moment London began becoming the soul of England itself. If we imagine Alfred walking through London's old streets, he likely saw more than a city. He saw potential, a place capable of controlling trade, connecting lands, and becoming a symbol for the rebirth of early England. According to Jung, the future is often created by those capable of imagining what does not yet exist. Perhaps Alfred was such a person, and London became the center of that dream. And if we think gently enough, the most touching thing about post-Roman London is the fact that this city came very close to disappearing. It had weakened and shrunk, been attacked, and repeatedly faced chaos. Yet somehow it continued, like a small flame refusing to die within cold wind. According to Jung, every journey toward maturity passes through loss, instability, and self-reconstruction. Perhaps London matured in much the same way as a human being. From Roman Londinium, the city slowly became the London of medieval England. No longer a colony of a distant empire, but the center of a new world being born. As night falls over Anglo-Saxon London, the Thames reflects the firelight of riverside docks. The wind carries salt from the North Sea. Far somewhere beyond the darkness, Viking ships still move through cold waters. And amid all that uncertainty, London quietly survives, fragile, weary, yet still not ready to disappear from history. The Middle Ages, trade, power, and rebellion. Perhaps no era made London feel both more alive and more unstable than the Middle Ages. It was a city of church bells, the scent of freshly baked bread, mud and coal smoke, merchants arriving from across Europe, but also a city of public executions, rebellion, poverty, and plague. If you imagine yourself entering London after the year 1066, cold mist drifts across the River Thames. Wooden rooftops crowd together along narrow streets. Horse-drawn carts echo across wet stone roads. And somewhere in the eastern part of the city, an enormous white stone structure is rising. Tower of London. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every form of power requires symbols, not only to rule through armies, but to plant within the human mind a feeling that such power is eternal. Perhaps that is why the Normans built the Tower of London, not merely as a fortress, but as a stone reminder that a new order had arrived in England. And if we think deeply enough, the Norman conquest did not simply change kings. It changed the entire psychology of London. The Normans brought stone castles, feudal systems, new architecture, and a more centralized form of authority than before. According to Jung, when a new culture appears, it often creates both fascination and unease. Perhaps London at that time simultaneously felt fear toward Norman power, yet also drawn toward the grandeur and order they introduced. If we imagine London citizens seeing the White Tower for the first time, a massive block of pale stone rising above a dark wooden city, they must have felt small and watched. According to Jung, architecture is never merely physical structure. It is psychology built into stone. Perhaps the Tower of London was the physical expression of medieval fear and power itself. If we continue reflecting, while the Tower of London represented military strength, Westminster Abbey represented sacred authority. Westminster gradually became the place where kings were crowned, where royalty prayed, and the spiritual heart of England. According to Jung, human beings always need sacred spaces to connect power with deeper meaning. A king does not only need armies, he must also be seen as chosen by God, guardian of order, the one connecting earth and heaven. Perhaps Westminster was where London first learned how to transform politics into sacred ritual. If you imagine entering Westminster during the Middle Ages, you would see candlelight flickering in darkness, the scent of incense and cold stone, Latin hymns echoing beneath high vaulted ceilings, and kings kneeling before the altar. A world where religion, power, and fear of death were almost impossible to separate from one another. According to Jung, the medieval world lived closer to the collective unconscious than modern humanity. Symbols existed everywhere: angels, demons, holy relics, and visions of the Last Judgment. Perhaps London in that age was not merely a city, it was a collective dream filled with faith, eaten superstition, hope, and fear. And if we think gently enough, what is remarkable is that amid all this chaos, London continued growing rapidly. Guilds, the medieval trade associations, slowly became the backbone of the city. There were guilds for weavers, blacksmiths, bakers, merchants, and nearly every profession imaginable. According to Jung, human beings are always searching for community, identity, and a sense of belonging. Perhaps medieval guilds were not merely economic institutions, they were the psychological families of London's people. If we imagine a young apprentice entering a guild for the first time, we see the glow of fire from the forge, the sound of hammers striking metal, the scent of wood and iron, and older craftsmen passing their knowledge to the next generation. According to Jung, civilizations are built not only by kings, but by the everyday rituals that help people feel they have a place within the world. Perhaps the guilds were what transformed London into a truly living organism. If we continue reflecting, Cheapside was perhaps the place that reflected the soul of medieval London most clearly. It was not merely a marketplace, it was sound, those, color, argument, the scent of food, and the commercial heartbeat of the city itself. If you imagine walking through Cheapside at midday, you would hear merchants shouting, church bells ringing, horses passing, laughter, and sometimes even fighting. According to Jung, ancient marketplaces always represent the primal life energy of society, places where people exchange, meet, compete, and tell stories to one another. Perhaps Cheapside was where London truly awakened every day. If we think deeply enough, the Middle Ages were not only an age of trade and cathedrals, they were also an age of resentment. The divide between rich and poor widened, taxes grew heavier, wars dragged on endlessly. And then, in 1381, the Peasants' Revolt erupted. According to history, crowds of peasants entered London carrying anger, desperation, and a longing to be recognized as human beings. According to Jung, when a society suppresses suffering for too long, the collective shadow eventually rises to the surface. Perhaps that rebellion was not merely political, it was the scream of people who felt invisible. If we imagine London during those days of unrest, we see city gates thrown open, crowds flooding through the streets, palaces attacked, and fear spreading among the nobility. A city suddenly realizing that the order it believed eternal was actually fragile. According to Jung, every power that refuses to listen to collective suffering eventually faces the eruption of its shadow. Perhaps London learned this truth painfully, but then something even more terrifying than war appeared: the Black Death. If you imagine London during the middle of the 14th century, you would feel a fear almost impossible to describe. Church bells ringing endlessly, carts carrying bodies through the streets, houses marked for death. People did not understand what was happening. They only knew that neighbors disappeared, families disappeared, half the city disappeared. According to Jung, nothing forces human beings to confront their fragility more deeply than plague. Perhaps the Black Death changed the soul of London forever. If we think deeply enough, the most terrifying thing about plague was not only death itself, but helplessness. No one knew why it had come, how to stop it, or when it would end. According to Jung, when faced with something beyond control, human beings often return to faith, a pest, unhobent to, or fear of the apocalypse. Perhaps London at that time lived with the feeling that the world could end at any moment. If we imagine a London street After the plague, many shops remain closed. Many homes stand empty. A strange silence settles over places once crowded with life. And then, slowly, the city begins living again. According to Jung, this is perhaps the strangest thing about humanity. After every tragedy, we continue. We reopen markets, rebuild homes, tell stories to our children, and somehow, life returns. Perhaps that is why London was never merely a city of power. It became a city of survival. And if we think gently enough, medieval London resembled a human mind growing toward maturity, filled with chaos, ambition, fear, yet also filled with the possibility of rebirth. It learned how to live beside loss, adapt to change, and continue rebuilding itself century after century. As night falls over medieval London, mist drifts between narrow streets. Candles glow softly behind tiny windows. Distant bells echo across the dark Thames. And somewhere between, power, trade, rebellion, and death, London quietly continues growing, becoming the city the world would one day never forget. The city of cathedrals, stone bridges, and hidden rivers. Perhaps what made medieval London feel so strange was the fact that it was simultaneously sacred and terrifying. A city of cathedrals, prayer bells, royal coronations, and candlelight shimmering beneath ancient stone vaults. Yet also a place where severed heads were displayed upon bridges, corpses drifted down the river, and dark alleyways carried the cold, damp scent of death. If you imagine yourself entering London during the 13th century, thick fog hangs above the Thames. Horse hooves echo across wet stone roads. The smells of coal smoke, dark ale, and freshly baked bread mix together in the cold air. And somewhere ahead, a massive stone bridge stretches across the river. London Bridge. But this bridge does not resemble any modern bridge. It almost feels like a small city floating upon water. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every great structure humanity creates reflects the psychology of the age that built it. Perhaps medieval London Bridge was the embodiment of London itself, crowded, chaotic, alive, and forever standing between life and death. If you imagine walking across that bridge, you would see houses crowded tightly along the edges, tiny shops selling meat, bread, and cloth, street vendors calling to customers, children running across narrow stone paths, and the sound of the Thames striking the bridge below. The bridge was not merely for crossing the river. It was a place where people lived, worked, loved, argued, and earned their living every day. According to Jung, human beings always transform roads and pathways into containers of collective memory. Perhaps London Bridge became legendary not only because of its architecture, but because millions of lives once passed across it. But simultaneously, it was also a place where power displayed fear. According to history, the heads of those executed for treason were once displayed upon the bridge as warnings to the entire city. If we imagine morning fog drifting past those severed heads upon wooden spikes, a strange chill moves down the spine. According to Jung, every civilization carries its own shadow, the darker side it uses to maintain order. Perhaps the heads displayed on London Bridge were the physical manifestation of that shadow, a quiet reminder that medieval power always walked beside fear. And if we think deeply enough, what is fascinating is that the people of London had almost grown accustomed to such things. They walked past death, violence, disease, as though they were ordinary parts of daily life. According to Jung, when human beings live too close to darkness, they often learn how to coexist with it. Perhaps medieval London grew powerful precisely because its people had become familiar with the fragility of life. If we imagine looking toward London's skyline during that era, one structure rises above all others, Old St. Paul's Cathedral. The immense spire of Old St. Paul's once stood among the greatest structures in Europe. According to Jung, human beings always build towers reaching toward the heavens, as a way for the mind to touch something more sacred than itself. Perhaps St. Paul's was not merely a cathedral. It was London's dream built from stone. If you imagine stepping inside medieval St. Paul's, you would see dim light filtering through stained glass, footsteps echoing across stone floors, the scent of incense, soft Latin prayers beneath immense vaulted ceilings. There, human beings felt small, temporary, yet simultaneously connected to something more eternal than themselves. According to Jung, every society requires symbolic centers to keep its collective soul from dissolving. Perhaps St. Paul's became such a center for London, and if we think gently enough, the most beautiful thing about ancient cathedrals is not merely their architecture, but the fact that they contain thousands of years of human emotion. Within them once existed weddings, funerals, desperate prayers, and moments when people searched for hope amid plague and war. According to Jung, places where human beings repeatedly bring their deepest emotions eventually become psychological spaces. Perhaps that is why some ancient churches in London feel almost sacred even to those without religion. If we continue reflecting, London was not built only from cathedrals and stone bridges. It was also shaped by rivers. Today, most people think only of the Thames, but medieval London once contained smaller rivers, canals, and hidden waterways threading through the city. One of them was the River Fleet. According to history, the Fleet was once a real river, wide enough for small boats to travel upon. But slowly, as London expanded, the city began burying its rivers beneath the earth. According to Jung, modern human beings often do the same thing with emotion. We bury it beneath consciousness. Perhaps London's hidden rivers are the perfect symbol of the unconscious mind. They never truly disappeared. They simply can no longer be seen. If you imagine standing upon a crowded London street today, beneath the sounds of trains and buses, an ancient river still quietly flows in darkness. According to Jung, the past rarely disappears completely. It continues moving beneath the surface. Perhaps London feels so mysterious because the entire city resembles a mind filled with buried memory. And if we think deeply enough, no place represents that memory more powerfully than Westminster Abbey. For nearly 1,000 years, English kings and queens have been crowned there. If you imagine a medieval coronation, you would see candlelight filling the great hall, red and gold robes, choirs echoing beneath stone arches, and a human being kneeling before the altar, before rising again as the embodiment of an entire nation. According to Jung, ritual is the way human beings transform power into spiritual meaning. A king does not simply receive a crown. He undergoes a symbolic transformation. Perhaps Westminster Abbey became the place where England repeatedly recreated itself across the centuries. And if we continue reflecting, the most touching thing about Westminster is the fact that it preserves not only kings, but the collective memory of an entire nation. Those ancient stones have heard prayers during plague years, news of victory, weeping during royal funerals, and the silence that follows war. According to Jung, some places eventually become the physical soul of a civilization. Perhaps Westminster is such a place. If you imagine London from above, at the end of the Middle Ages, you would see crowded rooftops, smoke rising through fog, cathedral spires reaching into the skyline, the dark Thames reflecting firelight, and stone bridges connecting parts of the city like veins through a living body. A city simultaneously sacred, ingowned, violent, and filled with longing. According to Jung, human beings are creatures of contradiction. Perhaps London became extraordinary because it never tried to hide those contradictions. There, beauty lived beside death, faith beside fear, and memory beside change. And if we think gently enough, medieval London feels like a long dream drifting through fog. A place where church bells, hidden rivers, stone bridges, and candlelight wove themselves together into a collective memory lasting centuries. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thing about London, not because it is perfect, but because it has preserved almost every layer of emotion humanity ever left within it. As night falls over medieval London, fog drifts slowly across the Thames. Oil lamps glow softly along London Bridge. The final prayers echo from street pools. And somewhere beneath those cold stone streets, the ancient rivers continue quietly flowing, carrying the memories of a city that has never truly fallen asleep. The Tudor and Elizabethan era, the stage of power. No period in London's history felt more radiant and more dramatic than the Tudor and Elizabethan age. It was a London awakening, a city no longer living only beneath the shadow of churches, plague, and medieval walls, but slowly becoming a stage for power, for art, for ambition, and for deeply human dreams. If you imagine yourself stepping into 16th century London, you would see a city more crowded than ever before. The River Thames filled with ships, church bells echoing through grey mist, narrow streets overflowing with merchants, nobles, apprentices, actors, and wanderers searching for fortune. The atmosphere of London at that time almost felt like something burning, not with fire, but with energy. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every era of transition carries both excitement and anxiety. When the old world begins collapsing, new possibilities simultaneously appear. Perhaps Tudor London was exactly such a moment, a city standing between the medieval and the modern, faith and ambition, old order and new personal desire. If we think deeply enough, one of the greatest transformations came through Henry VIII. Henry VIII was not merely a controversial king. He almost reshaped the entire soul of London. According to history, when Henry separated England from the Roman Catholic Church, he began dissolving the monasteries. Places that had once cared for the poor, healed the sick, prayed, and preserved knowledge for centuries, were suddenly closed. If we imagine London during that period, it feels almost like a spiritual earthquake. Monasteries that once seemed eternal were destroyed, seized, or transformed into royal property and palaces. According to Jung, when a society loses its old sacred symbols, it often falls into psychological chaos before creating a new identity. Perhaps London under Henry VIII experienced exactly that, an old world dying, a new world not yet fully formed. And if we think gently enough, what is fascinating is that people of the time did not only lose buildings, they lost places of prayer, places of refuge, places where suffering and death once held meaning. According to Jung, human beings cannot live through material life alone. We need symbols, rituals, and the feeling that our lives belong to something greater than ourselves. Perhaps the turbulence of the Tudor era felt so powerful because it touched the deepest layers of London's collective psyche. If you imagine walking beside the Thames on a foggy morning, you would see Hampton Court Palace, rising like a dream of red brick and stone. That palace was not merely a royal residence, it was a theatre of power. According to Jung, all great power requires theatricality, performance. Perhaps Henry VIII understood this very clearly. Every great hall, endguard, endless corridor, and extravagant feast was designed to make others feel small before Tudor authority. If you imagine entering Hampton Court's Great Hall, you would see fire burning inside enormous fireplaces, brilliant tapestries hanging across the walls, candlelight reflecting from crimson velvet robes, and music echoing beneath towering wooden ceilings. a world where power was performed almost like theater. According to Jung, human beings are always drawn toward the image of the king, an ancient archetype representing order, rebel, strength, and the will to control chaos. Perhaps the Tudor age was when that archetype was displayed most intensely in London. But simultaneously, London was also becoming a city of imagination. Under Elizabeth I, something extraordinary happened. The theatre exploded into life. According to Jung, when society changes rapidly, art often becomes the place where people process fear, longing, and questions about themselves. Perhaps that is why Elizabethan London suddenly became filled with theatres, poetry, and storytelling. People no longer wished merely to survive. They wanted to understand themselves. If you imagine an afternoon in Southwark, across the Thames, outside the strict control of the City of London, you would find a world both noisy and alive. Taverns overflowing with people, laughter spilling through narrow alleyways, the smell of ale, smoke, and river mud mixing together in the air. And somewhere amid all that chaos, a circular wooden theatre drawing enormous crowds. Globe Theatre. According to Jung, the stage is where human beings externalize the deepest parts of the psyche. Upon the stage, we see and love, betrayal, ambition, desire, and fear of death, performed like a collective dream. Perhaps the Globe Theatre was not merely entertainment. It was where London first began exploring its own soul. And if we think deeply enough, no one reflected that more powerfully than William Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote about kings, madmen, murderers, love, ghosts, and lost souls. But beneath all those stories, he was truly writing about the human mind itself. According to Jung, great works survive across centuries because they touch universal archetypes hidden within the collective unconscious. Perhaps that is why Shakespeare's plays still move people hundreds of years later, because he did not merely tell stories about London or England. He told stories about loneliness, ego, greed, and humanity's longing to be loved. If you imagine entering the Globe Theatre at sunset, you would hear audiences talking excitedly, vendors selling food, wooden boards creaking beneath footsteps, and anticipation spreading through the crowd. Then suddenly, everything falls silent. An actor steps onto the stage, and in that moment, all of London seems to dream the same dream together. According to Jung, art always helps human beings confront the parts of themselves that ordinary life tries to hide. Perhaps Elizabethan theatre became so powerful because it allowed London to see its own ambition, its own fears, and even the shadow of power itself. If we continue reflecting, what is fascinating about Southwark is the fact that it was simultaneously vibrant and chaotic. There were theatres, taverns, bear-baiting arenas, gambling houses, prostitution, and every form of entertainment the authorities considered dangerous. According to Jung, human beings always need places where the instinctive side of the self can be released. Perhaps Southwark became London's shadow, wilder, freer, and more honest about human nature itself. If you imagine a night in Southwark, torches burning along narrow alleys, drunken laughter echoing through the mist, actors leaving the theatre after a performance, and the dark Thames quietly reflecting shimmering lights from both sides of the city. According to Jung, every civilization lives between order and chaos. Perhaps Tudor and Elizabethan London became extraordinary because it never tried to completely destroy either side. It both built palaces and built theatres. It both strengthened authority and allowed imagination to explode into life. And if we think gently enough, this period feels like London's youth, a city suddenly realizing that it does not exist merely to survive. It can create, perform, tell stories, and imagine itself in entirely new ways. According to Jung, true maturity begins when human beings stop thinking only about survival and begin asking, "Who am I?" Perhaps Elizabethan London had begun asking that question, and the answer echoed through theatre, poetry, music, and the glowing lights of the globe beside the Thames. As night falls over Tudor London, distant bells echo through the mist. Candles flicker inside Southwark taverns. The Thames flows slowly between palaces, theatres, and dreams growing larger within the mind of the city. And somewhere amid laughter, poetry, and power, London quietly transformed into something greater than a city. It became a vast stage for the human soul. Plague, fire, and rebirth. No period in London's history felt more painful and more strange than the years 1665 and 1666. Within an astonishingly short time, the city faced plague, death, fire, and the near-total collapse of the familiar world around it. Yet strangely, from those ashes, a new London was born. If you imagine yourself entering London during the summer of 1665, you would see a city crowded, damp, and filled with narrow, dark streets. Wooden houses pressed tightly together, wastewater running along the roadside, carriages echoing through mist heavy with coal, smoke, and mud. And somewhere within that darkness, something invisible was spreading. The plague. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, nothing forces human beings to confront primal fear more deeply than disease. Because unlike war, the enemy cannot be seen, cannot be negotiated with, cannot be fully escaped. Perhaps London in 1665 felt more clearly than ever before the terrifying fragility of human life. If we think deeply enough, the plague did not only kill bodies, it shattered society's entire sense of safety. The people of London began to distrust one another, avoid one another, lock themselves inside their homes, and live with the fear that death might arrive at any moment. According to Jung, when faced with something beyond control, the collective shadow often rises to the surface. Fear, paranoia, despair. Perhaps the plague forced London to see the most fragile part of itself. If you imagine walking through a London street during that time, you would see shuttered windows, red crosses painted upon infected houses, and the words, "Lord have mercy upon us." Funeral bells ringing almost endlessly, death carts moving through the night, collectors wearing dark clothing, calling through the fog, "Bring out your dead." According to Jung, modern people often try to forget that death always remains very close, but eras like the plague suddenly drag that truth back into consciousness. Perhaps London in 1665 resembled a collective mind, forced to stare directly into its greatest fear, that no one truly controls life. And if we think gently enough, perhaps the most heartbreaking thing was the loneliness. Many died, without family beside them, without funerals, without farewell. According to Jung, human beings do not fear only death itself. They fear disappearing without being remembered. Perhaps the plague left London feeling so haunting because it left behind too many memories that never had the chance to be spoken aloud. If you imagine night falling across the city during the plague, London becomes almost silent. No more crowded taverns, lively theatres, or laughter from the markets. Only distant bells, hurried footsteps, and the smell of smoke from fires believed to drive sickness away. According to Jung, in the deepest darkness, human beings often begin searching for deeper meaning. Perhaps the plague caused many Londoners to ask for the first time what life truly is, what remains after everything ends, and whether a city itself possesses a soul. But then, before London could recover, another catastrophe appeared. This time, not invisible like disease, but blazing like the apocalypse itself. According to history, In September 1666, a small fire began inside a bakery on Pudding Lane, and then strong winds, dry timber houses, streets too narrow, all of it transformed London into fuel for an ocean of fire. If you imagine that moment, you would see flames swallowing rooftops, ash filling the sky, alarm bells echoing everywhere, and crowds fleeing across London Bridge in panic. According to Jung, fire has always symbolized both destruction and rebirth. Perhaps the Great Fire of London carried a meaning deeper than physical disaster. It almost resembled a vast ritual of purification within history itself. If we think deeply enough, medieval London had existed for centuries, overcrowded, unsanitary, dangerously flammable, and burdened by too many remnants of the past. According to Jung, true transformation sometimes occurs only when old structures can no longer continue existing. Perhaps the fire of 1666, terrifying as it was, simultaneously opened the path toward an entirely new London. If you imagine standing beside the Thames during the Great Fire, the sky burns crimson above the black water. Smoke covers the moon. Citizens clutch, children, possessions, the final memories they could rescue from the flames. And somewhere amid collapsing timber, a city centuries old burns into ash. According to Jung, every journey of rebirth begins with loss. Perhaps London needed to burn in order to become the next version of itself. And if we think gently enough, what feels almost miraculous is that old St. Paul's Cathedral also collapsed within the inferno. The cathedral that had once been London's spiritual heart now stood only as blackened stone. Many surely believed then that the city would never recover. But afterward, one man appeared, Christopher Wren. According to Jung, after chaos, human beings always need builders, people capable of imagining a new order from ruins. Perhaps Christopher Wren became such a figure for London. If you imagine Wren looking across the city after the fire, he would see ashes, smoke, collapsed walls, and empty spaces where entire neighborhoods once stood. But simultaneously, he also saw possibility. A London wiedergewohnt, cleaner, is more modern. According to Jung, imagination is humanity's greatest healing force, because before rebuilding the world, we must first imagine it. If we continue reflecting, what is remarkable about post-fire London is not merely that it was rebuilt, but the way it learned from trauma. The new streets became wider. Many buildings were rebuilt with brick and stone. Instead of flammable timber, a medieval city slowly transformed into a modern one. According to Jung, maturity does not mean avoiding pain. It means transforming pain into meaningful change. Perhaps, after 1666, London finally began maturing in exactly that way. If you imagine the new dome of St. Paul's slowly rising above London's skyline, you feel a very quiet form of hope, not loud, not triumphant, only the feeling that life continues. According to Jung, human beings possess an extraordinary ability. We always try to rebuild meaning, even after the greatest losses. Perhaps the new St. Paul's became the symbol of that truth. Not merely a cathedral, but proof that a city can be reborn after nearly losing everything. And if we think deeply enough, London during the Plague and Great Fire resembles the human mind itself. Sometimes we too experience crises, loss, collapse, and the feeling that everything familiar has vanished. But according to Jung, within every collapse lies the possibility of restructuring the self. Perhaps that is why the story of 17th century London still touches modern people so deeply, because somewhere inside, everyone has had to learn how to rise from the ashes of themselves. As night falls over London after the Great Fire, smoke still lingers in the cold air. Ash covers streets once crowded with life. Yet within that darkness, the first hammers begin sounding once more. The first stones are laid, and somewhere beside the Thames, a new London is quietly being born. No longer the old medieval city, but a city that survived fire and learned how to rebuild itself from its own ashes. The age of coffee, science, and finance. One of the strangest things about London is the fact that this city was not built only from stone, bridges, and cathedrals. It was also built from ideas, conversations, written notes, the sound of pens moving across paper, and long nights where people sat together, trying to understand how the world truly worked. After the plague and the Great Fire, London was not only being reborn architecturally, something deeper was changing as well. A new kind of mind was beginning to emerge. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every era of humanity is guided by a central symbol. If the medieval world had been dominated by the church, faith, and fear of Judgment Day, then 17th and 18th century London began to be guided by something else. Reason, science, commerce, and the desire to understand, measure, and control the world. Perhaps this was the moment London began becoming the brain of a growing empire. If you imagine yourself entering London after the Great Fire, the rebuilt city still carries the scent of fresh wood and stone. The streets are wider. Brick buildings slowly replace the old medieval maze of timber houses. But the most remarkable thing does not lie in the architecture. It lies inside the coffeehouses. According to history, London's coffeehouses of that era were almost like the internet of the ancient world. People gathered there to read news, debate politics, discuss science, track merchant ships, and hear stories arriving from across the world. If you imagine a London coffeehouse in the late 17th century, you would see tobacco smoke drifting through candlelight, spoons striking porcelain cups, newspapers spread across wooden tables, and men in long coats arguing endlessly. One speaks about astronomy, another discusses trade in India, war in Europe, or commodity prices at the docks. According to Carl Gustav Jung, when people gather to exchange ideas, a form of collective mind begins to emerge. Perhaps those coffeehouses did not merely sell drinks. They were where London learned how to think, like a global center. And if we think deeply enough, what is fascinating is that coffee itself carried symbolic meaning. Unlike ale or wine, which often slowed people down, coffee sharpened the mind. According to Jung, every civilization reflects the psychology of its era through everyday rituals. Perhaps the explosion of coffee culture in London was not accidental. A new world was awakening, a world that wanted to calculate, explore, and understand everything through reason. If you imagine rain falling outside a London coffeehouse, while inside, a group of merchants marks shipping routes across maps, you begin to feel something quietly powerful. Because from conversations that seemed so small, modern finance itself was slowly being born. One of the most famous places was the coffee house of Edward Lloyd. Later, it became Lloyd's of London. According to history, merchants and ship owners gathered there to exchange shipping information, share risk, and negotiate insurance agreements. According to Jung, human beings are always trying to reduce the uncertainty of existence. Perhaps insurance itself is humanity's psychological response to the fear of loss. The sea is dangerous. Ships may sink. Cargo may disappear forever. But when risk is shared, people feel less alone before the chaos of the world. If we continue reflecting, the beautiful thing about London during that era was the fact that it became a place where every idea seemed to meet, not only commerce, but science as well. According to history, Royal Society transformed London into one of the world's great centers of knowledge. There, scientists gathered to observe, experiment, and ask questions about nature itself. According to Jung, the ability to ask questions is one of the things that most deeply separates human beings from other creatures. Perhaps, the Royal Society represented the moment humanity began believing that the world could be understood rather than merely feared. If you imagine a meeting of the Royal Society, you would see telescopes, drawings, mechanical models, and curious minds bending over experiments beneath candlelight. A world where knowledge, discovery, and imagination were expanding almost like a spiritual revolution. According to Jung, human beings are always driven by the archetype of the seeker, the desire to understand what lies beyond present limits. Perhaps, London during that age became the center of that archetype. And if we think deeply enough, no one symbolizes that era more clearly than Isaac Newton. Today, people remember Newton for gravity, motion, and science itself. But what is fascinating is that he also worked at the Royal Mint in London. According to Jung, great geniuses often live between the material world and the symbolic world. Newton studied the universe, light, mathematics, yet simultaneously participated in stabilizing the nation's currency. Perhaps that perfectly reflects London itself, a city where doing science, power, and money slowly merged together. If you imagine Newton walking through London's mist-filled streets, he likely heard carriage wheels, church bells, and merchants shouting across crowded roads. Yet somewhere within his mind, the planets continued moving according to invisible laws. According to Jung, great minds often perceive order beneath chaos. Perhaps, Newton represented London's new belief that the world could be decoded. If we continue reflecting, as commerce and science expanded, something else also quietly emerged. Modern finance. The Bank of England was founded. Then the London Stock Exchange appeared. According to Jung, money is not merely material. It is collective belief made visible. A piece of paper holds value only because millions of people agree to believe in it. Perhaps London became so powerful, not merely because of armies or warships, but because it learned how to control the collective imagination of the economy itself. If you imagine London's early financial district, you would see merchants writing beneath candlelight, quills scratching softly across paper, ships arriving from every corner of the world, and quiet negotiations changing the fate of entire empires. According to Jung, all great power begins with the ability to make others believe in a shared story. Perhaps modern finance is actually a new form of mythology, no longer built upon gods, but upon credit, contracts, and belief in the future. And if we think gently enough, the most touching thing about London during this period is the fact that it no longer lived only through memories of the past. It began dreaming about the future, a future where knowledge could change the world, science could explain the heavens, and commerce could connect every ocean. According to Jung, human beings mature when we begin not only fearing the world, but wanting to understand it. Perhaps London, in the 17th and 18th centuries, was the moment humanity entered that new psychological stage. As night falls over the London of coffeehouses and science, candles still burn inside cafes near the docks. Soft debates continue beneath the smell of strong coffee and ink-stained paper. Beyond the Thames, merchant ships still move through the mist. And somewhere between commerce, into science, money, and imagination, London quietly becomes something even greater than a city. It becomes the place where humanity first begins learning how to think about the world in an entirely new way. The Industrial Revolution and the enormous city. Perhaps no period transformed London so quickly that it became almost unrecognizable. Like the 19th century, for thousands of years before, London had grown slowly, but then suddenly, everything accelerated. The population exploded. Factories rose everywhere, railways cut through the city, coal smoke covered the sky, and London, once built from stone bridges, cathedrals, and medieval streets, now began transforming into a gigantic machine that never slept. If you imagine yourself standing in London around the year 1850, you would almost feel the city vibrating. Iron wheels grinding against rails, train whistles echoing through black fog, crowds pouring through the streets, like rivers constantly in motion. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, when the rhythm of human life accelerates too quickly, the collective psyche begins changing as well. Perhaps the Industrial Revolution did not merely transform London physically, it entirely changed the way people experienced time, distance, and even themselves. If we think deeply enough, before the Industrial Age, most people lived close to where they were born. Travel was slow. Life followed the sun, the seasons, and church bells. But then railways appeared, and suddenly the world became smaller. According to Jung, every great technology changes human psychology. Perhaps the railway became one of the most powerful symbols of modernity. It caused human beings to feel for the first time that time itself could be controlled. If you imagine Paddington Station or King's Cross Station in the morning, you would see white steam filling the platforms, railway workers shouting departures, suitcases striking stone floors, and thousands of people moving simultaneously. A feeling almost mechanical. According to Jung, the modern city often causes people to feel simultaneously excited and lonely. Perhaps 19th century London was where that feeling first appeared so powerfully. If we continue reflecting, what is remarkable is that London did not only develop above ground, it also began digging beneath itself. According to history, the London Underground opened in 1863, becoming the world's first underground railway system. If you imagine Londoners descending into underground stations for the first time, they must have felt strange, claustrophobic, yet simultaneously fascinated. An entirely new city was being built beneath the old one. According to Jung, the unconscious always exists beneath consciousness. Perhaps the underground became so symbolic because it mirrors the structure of the human mind itself. Above, light, movement, everyday life. Below, dark tunnels, echoes, and invisible flows, keeping everything functioning. If you imagine the sound of the first underground trains, metal vibrating through darkness, steam and smoke filling tunnels, people sitting shoulder to shoulder inside carriages, pulled beneath the earth, as though traveling directly into the future. According to Jung, every great technological leap resembles a collective rite of transformation. Perhaps the underground was the moment London officially entered modernity. But simultaneously, the city also began confronting the shadow side of its own progress. The population grew too quickly. Factories released endless smoke. The Thames slowly became polluted. According to Jung, every form of progress carries its own shadow. Perhaps the Industrial Revolution made London wealthier than ever before, but it also created poverty, disease, and suffocating overcrowding. If you imagine London during the summer of 1858, you would not only smell coal smoke, you would smell the terrible pollution of the Thames itself. According to history, that period became known as the Great Stink. The river that had once been London's soul had nearly become an open sewer. The smell grew so overwhelming that Parliament hung chemical-soaked curtains, and the entire city lived in constant discomfort. According to Jung, when human beings ignore the dark side of progress for too long, it eventually rises in ways impossible to ignore. Perhaps the Great Stink became the industrial shadow of London, made visible. And if we think deeply enough, what is fascinating is that London was saved, not through miracle, but through engineering. Joseph Bazalgette designed a vast underground sewer system beneath the city. According to Jung, those who build infrastructure are rarely remembered like kings, yet they quietly transform the lives of millions. Perhaps Bazalgette became a kind of healer for modern London. If you imagine him standing before maps of the city, beneath crowded streets, he sees flows, pressure, and the invisible needs of an entire metropolis. According to Jung, healing is not merely about treating the surface. We must understand what is happening beneath it. Perhaps London's sewer system almost resembles psychotherapy on an urban scale, releasing toxic things that had accumulated for too long. If you imagine workers digging tunnels beneath London, you would hear pickaxes striking earth, rushing water, and echoes stretching through darkness. A modern city quietly being built beneath the present one. According to Jung, every lasting structure requires invisible foundations. Perhaps London's sewers did not merely save the city from disease. They allowed London to continue existing as a gigantic living organism. If we continue reflecting, another figure who quietly changed London's history was Jon Snow, not the character from fantasy stories, but the doctor who discovered that cholera spread through contaminated water. According to history, many people at the time believed disease came from bad air, foul smells, or divine punishment. But Jon Snow began to observe, question, and connect evidence together. According to Jung, psychological maturity begins when human beings dare to face truth rather than merely believing collective fear. Perhaps Jon Snow represented the new spirit of London, more practical, more scientific, yet deeply humane. If you imagine him walking through the streets of Soho, holding records of the dead, you would sense a very quiet form of determination, not dramatic, not heroic in the ancient sense, simply a human being trying to understand what was killing his city. According to Jung, the light of consciousness often begins when one person is brave enough to look deeper into chaos. Perhaps Jon Snow did exactly that for London, and if we think gently enough, 19th century London resembles a mind developing too quickly, a city simultaneously brilliant, exhausted, polluted, ambitious, and endlessly moving. It created underground railways, modern finance, urban engineering, and new medical science. But in return, people also began to live faster, drift farther apart, and feel smaller within enormous crowds. According to Jung, modernization always carries a paradox. We become more connected to the world than ever before, yet sometimes lose connection with ourselves. Perhaps 19th century London was where humanity first experienced that feeling. On a massive scale, as night falls over industrial London, coal smoke still hangs above the rooftops, trains echo somewhere beneath the earth, gaslight reflects upon the dark Thames, and beneath all that noise, millions of people continue, working, moving, dreaming, and searching for meaning inside a city growing so quickly that it almost exceeds humanity's ability to fully understand it. London is no longer merely a city of history. It has become the first great symbol of the modern world, and brilliant, exhausted, and never truly asleep. The Victorian Age, wealth and poverty. No era of London carried a beauty both dazzling and heartbreaking. Quite like the Victorian Age, it was a city of gaslights, grand boulevards, enormous railway stations, and the largest empire the world had ever seen. But simultaneously, it was also a city of coal smoke, child laborers, damp and freezing slums, and millions of people living in poverty beneath the shadow of unimaginable wealth. If you imagine yourself walking into London at the end of the 19th century, the city would almost feel like two different worlds layered upon one another. One side filled with aristocratic carriages, brightly lit shops, gentlemen in tailcoats, and music drifting from grand ballrooms. The other side filled with dark alleyways, filthy water, overcrowded rooms, and the sound of coughing echoing from poor working districts. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, every civilization possesses a persona, the face it wishes the world to see. But beneath that persona, the shadow always remains. Perhaps Victorian London became the clearest embodiment of that truth, a city proudly calling itself the heart of a civilized empire, while simultaneously hiding hunger, loneliness, and deep inequality within its darkness. If we think deeply enough, what is fascinating is that Victorian London was not poor at all. In fact, it was one of the richest cities on earth. Ships from India, Africa, the Caribbean, and Asia constantly arrived at London's docks. Goods from across the planet flowed through the Thames. According to Jung, great power often creates the illusion that progress is endless. Perhaps Londoners of that era truly believed they were living at the center of the modern world. Yet beneath the lights of empire, countless, almost invisible people were still struggling simply to survive. If you imagine walking through the East End on a winter night, you would encounter an entirely different London. No more palaces, grand avenues, or glittering theatres. Only muddy alleys, hurried footsteps, weak light behind torn curtains, and the smell of coal mixed with fog. According to Jung, places forgotten by society often reflect the collective unconscious of that civilization. Perhaps the East End became the shadow of Victorian London itself, a place holding everything the wealthy city refused to confront. And if we think gently enough, the most heartbreaking thing was not merely poverty itself, it was the feeling of being swallowed by the crowd. 19th century London was too large, too crowded, too loud. Millions lived beside one another, yet simultaneously felt deeply alone. According to Jung, human beings need the feeling of being seen, belonging, and having meaning within a community. But the industrial city often transformed the individual into only a tiny part of a gigantic machine. Perhaps that is why Victorian literature carries so much sadness within it. And if we think about London during that age, no one captured the soul of the city more powerfully than Charles Dickens. Dickens did not merely write stories. He almost resembled someone walking through London's darkness and returning to tell the world what he had seen. According to Jung, artists are often the people who confront society's shadow on behalf of everyone else. Perhaps Dickens did exactly that for London. If you imagine him walking through crowded slums, child labor workshops, or fog-filled alleyways, you would see him quietly observing exhausted faces, children's eyes, and the fragility of people nearly forgotten by the world. And then all of it became Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, and the streets filled with living souls throughout his novels. According to Jung, storytelling is how humanity rescues memory from disappearance. Perhaps Dickens made London immortal because he did not merely write about buildings, he wrote about the emotions of the people living inside them. If we think deeply enough, what is beautiful about Dickens is the fact that despite witnessing enormous suffering, he still believed in compassion. According to Jung, human beings only truly heal when we dare to face darkness without losing the ability to love. Perhaps that is why Dickens' works still move modern readers, because beneath every tragedy, hope quietly continues to exist. If you imagine entering a street in the East End, you would hear many different languages, Irish accents, Yiddish, English, spoken in countless tones. Victorian London was no longer only a city of English people. It became a place where thousands of immigrants arrived, bringing with them memories, fears, and hopes for a new life. According to Jung, every great city eventually becomes a collective mind made from many overlapping cultures. Perhaps that is what made London simultaneously chaotic and extraordinary. If we think about Whitechapel, that district carried the strong imprint of Jewish immigrant communities, many families fleeing poverty, oppression, and violence in Eastern Europe came to London hoping to begin again. If you imagine a small room in Whitechapel, you would see weak candlelight, the smell of warm bread, children speaking several languages, and people struggling to preserve their identity within an overwhelming city. According to Jung, human beings always need memory, symbols, and community in order not to lose themselves. Perhaps London's immigrant districts were not merely places to live, they became psychological islands within the vast ocean of modernization. If we continue reflecting, what is fascinating is that Victorian London simultaneously created unimaginable wealth and unimaginable suffering. According to Jung, every system obsessed with material success eventually produces spiritual imbalance. Perhaps London had already begun sensing that truth. Behind beautiful buildings, technological progress, and imperial power, many people still felt exhausted, lost, and trapped inside the endless rhythm of industrial life. If you imagine London fog descending in the evening, gaslights glow softly yellow along the streets. Carriages echo in the distance. Coal smoke mixes with mist, creating a dim light that feels almost dreamlike. According to Jung, fog often symbolizes the unconscious, the place where things are not entirely clear, yet deeply present. Perhaps Victorian London became so haunting because the entire city resembled a collective dream, magnificent, yet filled with shadow. And if we think gently enough, the most touching thing about Victorian London is the fact that despite how harsh life became, people still continued to love, tell stories, build families, and hope for tomorrow. A mother still sang her child to sleep inside a freezing room. A worker still paused to listen to music drifting from the street. A child still laughed while running through puddles beneath gaslight. According to Jung, the small light of the human soul often shines most clearly during the darkest periods. Perhaps that is what Dickens and Victorian London wished to remind us of, that beneath every enormous system, every empire, every industrial revolution, the thing that truly keeps the world alive is still compassion, memory, and the human need to belong. As night falls over Victorian London, fog thickens around the streets of the East End. Train whistles echo faintly from distant stations. Gaslights shimmer upon rain-soaked roads. And somewhere between, wealth, poverty, coal smoke, and immigrant dreams, London quietly continues growing, not only as the capital of an empire, but as a vast mirror reflecting both the light and the darkness within the human soul. World War and the spirit of resilience. No era in London's history made humanity feel the fragility of civilization more deeply than the Second World War. A city that had already survived plague, the Great Fire, the Industrial Revolution, and centuries of upheaval, now faced the most terrifying force of the modern age: war from the sky. If you imagine yourself standing in London during the autumn of 1940, the city is covered in darkness. Not natural darkness, but darkness created intentionally. Streetlights are extinguished. Windows are covered. The entire city attempts to make itself invisible beneath the night, while bombers move somewhere above the clouds. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, war does not merely destroy cities, it pulls the darkest parts of human psychology to the surface. Fear, anger, survival instinct, and simultaneously, the courage people never knew they possessed. Perhaps London during the Blitz became the moment both the light and darkness of humanity revealed themselves most clearly. If we think deeply enough, the most terrifying thing about the Blitz was not only the bombs themselves, it was the waiting. Every night, Londoners heard air raid sirens echo through the cold fog. Then came distant engines, anti-aircraft fire, and finally, the explosions shaking the ground itself. According to Jung, prolonged fear often changes the entire collective psyche. Perhaps Londoners during that period lived in a state where day and night, hope and despair, normal life and apocalypse almost merged together. If you imagine standing atop a London rooftop during the Blitz, you would see fires rising among the streets, black smoke covering the sky, and red light reflecting upon the Thames, a city built across thousands of years, now burning like a sea of fire. According to Jung, fire in dreams often symbolizes both destruction and transformation. Perhaps London once again had to pass through flames in order to discover what truly kept the city alive. And if we think gently enough, what is extraordinary is that amid all the chaos, life somehow continued. People descended into the London Underground for shelter. The underground stations, originally built for modern movement, suddenly became collective sanctuaries for the city. If you imagine descending into a London Underground station during a night in 1940, you would see long rows of people sitting close together, blankets spread across cold stone floors, children sleeping beneath the distant sound of trains, dim yellow lights reflecting upon tunnel walls. Some people read books, played cards, sang quietly, or simply stared into the darkness ahead. According to Jung, when facing immense fear, human beings instinctively move toward community. Perhaps the underground during wartime was not merely a bomb shelter. It became the place where London held on to the feeling, we are still here. If we continue reflecting, the most touching thing was not cinematic heroism. It was the small, everyday acts. Someone sharing hot tea, a mother singing her child to sleep beneath falling bombs, a musician quietly playing violin inside a station tunnel. According to Jung, hope rarely arrives in grand or dramatic forms. It usually comes quietly, through actions reminding people that they have not completely lost their humanity. Perhaps London survived not only because of armies, but because of millions of those small moments of resilience. If you imagine the fires of the Blitz, one image, still standing against the skyline, St. Paul's Cathedral, the dome of St. Paul's, surrounded by smoke and flames, slowly became a symbol of the entire nation. According to Jung, human beings always need symbols to prevent the collective spirit from collapsing. Perhaps St. Paul's was no longer merely a cathedral. It became memory, faith, and London's determination to continue existing. If you imagine the famous image of St. Paul's rising through smoke, it feels almost surreal. An ancient structure, silent, standing within a world coming apart. According to Jung, lasting symbols often give people the feeling that something still exists beyond temporary chaos. Perhaps that is why the image of St. Paul's touched millions during the war, because somewhere deep within, everyone needed to believe that not everything would be destroyed. If we think deeply enough, while bombs fell above ground, another world continued beneath London itself. The Churchill War Rooms, the underground command center where Winston Churchill directed the war effort. According to Jung, when the world descends into chaos, people often seek the archetype of the father leader, a figure representing stability, decisiveness, and the refusal to surrender. Perhaps Churchill became such a powerful symbol, not only because of politics, but because he embodied a deep psychological need within the nation, the need to feel that someone was still holding direction steady within the darkness. If you imagine Churchill walking through underground corridors, you would see maps covering walls, telegraphs sounding constantly, cigar smoke lingering in metallic air, and exhausted people working through the night beneath the earth, a hidden world beneath a burning city. According to Jung, every civilization in crisis exists simultaneously on two levels: the chaotic surface and the deeper layer where the will to survive quietly continues functioning. Perhaps wartime London became the embodiment of that truth. And if we think gently enough, perhaps the most heartbreaking thing about war is the children. According to history, millions of London's children were evacuated from the city. If you imagine a railway station filled with children, you would see small cardboard suitcases, name tags pinned onto coats, eyes filled with both curiosity and fear, and parents trying to smile, despite knowing they might not see their children again for months, perhaps even years. According to Jung, childhood symbolizes hope, the future, and the most innocent part of the human soul. Perhaps the evacuation of children was not merely a safety strategy, it was London trying to protect its own future. If you imagine a child looking through a train window leaving London, behind them remain smoke, sirens, and a city fading into wartime fog. According to Jung, every great separation leaves traces within the unconscious. Perhaps an entire generation of Londoners grew up carrying that memory, the memory that war could take away safety overnight. If we continue reflecting, what is extraordinary about wartime London is not the fact that it avoided destruction. In truth, many parts of the city were destroyed. What is remarkable is that London did not lose its soul. According to Jung, true strength does not mean never falling. It means possessing the ability to rise again, preserve meaning, and continue loving even after suffering. Perhaps what people call the spirit of London is exactly that. As night falls over London during the Blitz, sirens once again echo somewhere within the fog. People slowly descend into the underground. Searchlights sweep across the darkness above, searching for aircraft within black clouds. And amid bombs, fire, fear, and separation, London quietly holds on to something very fragile. The belief that another morning will eventually arrive, and this city will continue living once more. Modern London, multiculturalism, and rebirth. What makes modern London truly extraordinary does not lie in its skyscrapers or its vast underground railway system. It lies in the fact that this city has never truly stopped changing. After war, bombings, economic crises, and thousands of years of layered history, London continues to reinvent itself, not by forgetting the past, but by learning how to live beside it. If you imagine yourself walking through London today, you would encounter a city almost impossible to define through a single identity. On the same underground train, you might hear English, Arabic, Hindi, Yoruba, Ozum, Polish, and dozens of other languages. The scent of curry, Ethiopian coffee, Jewish bread, and Caribbean food mixes together within London's cold, rainy air. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, a mature human being is not someone without contradictions. It is someone who learns how to live with many different parts inside themselves. Perhaps modern London is very much the same, a city no longer trying to become only British, only European, or only its past. It has become a place where many memories and identities exist simultaneously. If we think deeply enough, what is fascinating is that London was once the center of an empire stretching across the world, and then, over time, that world somehow returned to London. People from the Caribbean, South Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East brought with them music, food, memory, religion, and the wounds of their own histories. According to Jung, every civilization eventually must confront the other, the parts existing outside its familiar identity. Perhaps modern London became extraordinary because it was forced to learn not merely how to coexist with difference, but how to live through it. If you imagine a summer day at the Notting Hill Carnival, you would see brilliant colors flowing through the streets, Caribbean drums echoing beside old Victorian houses, the smell of spicy food filling the air, and millions of people dancing beneath the London sky. But beneath the celebration, the carnival carries a far deeper history. According to history, it grew from Caribbean immigrant communities, people who once faced racism, poverty, and the feeling of being treated like outsiders inside this very city. According to Jung, music and festivals often become ways for the collective psyche to heal trauma. Perhaps Notting Hill Carnival is not merely a celebration. It is a declaration saying, we belong here too. And if we think gently enough, the most touching thing about the carnival is the fact that it transforms suffering into music. The rhythms of Caribbean drums echoing through grey London streets almost resemble the heartbeat of memory and survival itself. According to Jung, human beings only truly heal when the parts pushed to the margins are finally recognized. Perhaps the carnival became the moment London learned to look back at itself, not merely as a former empire, but as a genuinely multicultural city. If you imagine standing in East London, where the vast docks of the British Empire once stood, you would now see Canary Wharf rising in glass and steel against the sky. But what is fascinating is that this place was once nearly abandoned. When the old docks declined, East London fell into unemployment, poverty, and the feeling of being abandoned by history itself. According to Jung, every decline contains the possibility of rebirth. Perhaps Canary Wharf became the most modern symbol of that truth. If you imagine the old docklands during their golden age, you would see grannies, cargo ships, metal echoing beside the Thames, and the smell of salt water mixed with coal. Then, decades later, everything fell silent. Empty warehouses, rusting docks, a psychological emptiness appearing inside the city. According to Jung, when an old identity dies, human beings often experience confusion before discovering a new form of themselves. Perhaps London at the end of the 20th century went through precisely that experience, and then Canary Wharf rose again, glass towers reflecting London's grey clouds, an entirely new financial centre, born from industrial ruins. According to Jung, this is the ancient archetype of rebirth, something new growing from a place that once seemed finished forever. If we think deeply enough, modern London almost resembles a body made of many layers. Above ground, rake canes, restaurants, glass office towers, streams of people from countless nations. But beneath it all, the past still remains. According to history, the Elizabeth Line, widely known through the Crossrail project, unearthed thousands of historical artifacts beneath London. During tunnel excavations, workers discovered human remains, Roman coins, medieval pottery, and traces of London's long vanished from memory. According to Jung, the unconscious resembles a buried ancient city. What seems lost still exists beneath the surface. Perhaps London feels so haunting because the entire city resembles a geological layer of memory. If you imagine workers digging beneath London, every movement of the excavator almost feels like the excavation of the collective unconscious itself. Beneath modern buildings, the past quietly sleeps. War, plague, the lives of millions who disappeared from history. According to Jung, maturity does not mean erasing the past. It means learning how to live beside it. Perhaps modern London feels special precisely because it never truly severed itself from its older layers of memory. If we continue reflecting, the most beautiful thing about London today is not wealth, nor financial power, but its ability to change, absorb, and continue living after surviving immense transformation. According to Jung, every healthy individual requires the process of individuation, continually recreating the self, without losing the core soul within. Perhaps London has done exactly that. For more than 2,000 years, it has been a Roman town, a medieval fortress, the capital of an empire, an industrial city, a wartime battlefield, and now a global metropolis. Yet somehow, it is still London. If you imagine walking through London at midnight, you would see underground trains still moving beneath the earth, the lights of Canary Wharf reflecting upon the Thames, Caribbean music drifting from a distant bar, and somewhere beneath your feet, ancient Roman roads still resting silently in darkness. According to Jung, human beings are always made from the past, memory, thing, wounds, and older versions of themselves. Perhaps London touches the human mind so deeply because it mirrors the very structure of the soul, a place never truly finished, always changing, always reborn, and always carrying old layers of memory beneath every new beginning. As night falls over modern London, city lights tremble softly across the Thames. Trains continue moving quietly beneath the ground. Music from Notting Hill blends with distant rain somewhere in the east of the city, and beneath, glass and steel. Music, multicultural crowds, and the restless rhythm of modern life, London continues breathing like an ancient living being, carrying thousands of years of memory, yet never stopping its search for the next version of itself. London as a living organism. After everything we have walked through together in this long journey, perhaps the strangest thing about London does not lie in palaces, battles, or famous landmarks. It lies in the fact that London almost resembles a living organism, a vast body created from memory, loss, hope, and millions of lives that once passed through it. If you imagine standing upon a bridge above the River Thames at night, you would see city lights trembling upon dark water, the sound of trains somewhere beneath the earth, distant sirens echoing through the fog. And beneath all those modern sounds, older London still quietly remain. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, human beings are never only the present moment. Inside every person still live childhood memories, older versions of themselves, wounds, dreams, and things long believed forgotten. Perhaps London is very much the same, not one city, but many cities layered upon one another across thousands of years. If we think deeply enough, beneath London's modern streets, there still remain Roman walls, plague victims, traces of war, buried rivers, and the foundations of vanished worlds. According to Jung, the unconscious does not erase the past. It preserves everything beneath consciousness. Perhaps London feels so haunting because the entire city resembles an immense collective unconscious. If you imagine digging deep beneath London, every layer of earth almost resembles a layer of memory. First appear modern glass and steel, electrical wires, underground stations, then deeper still, Victorian brickwork, ashes from the Great Fire, medieval coins, and finally, footprints from Roman Londinium. According to Jung, every mature human being lives upon many layers of memory in exactly the same way. Perhaps that is why London touches our minds so profoundly, because it mirrors the structure hidden within ourselves. And if we think gently enough, the most beautiful thing about London is the fact that it has never been perfect. It has burned, suffered disease, endured bombings, fallen into poverty, and repeatedly stood near collapse. Yet somehow, the city continued living. According to Jung, true strength does not mean never breaking. It means possessing the ability to be reborn after breaking. Perhaps London survived so long, not because it was stronger than time, but because it learned how to change with time itself. If you imagine London as a living body, then the Thames resembles its bloodstream. Underground stations resemble its nervous system. Neighborhoods resemble different memories and personalities. Some places are elegant, brightly lit, ambitious. Others are quiet, ancient, carrying the scent of a past that never fully disappeared. According to Jung, every human being contains many smaller selves within. Perhaps London is the same, a living organism where many souls exist simultaneously. If we continue reflecting, what is extraordinary is that no era ever fully disappears from London. The Romans remain there, inside ancient walls. The Tudor age remains there, inside theatres and palaces. The Victorian age remains there, inside railway stations and coal-stained fog. The Blitz remains there, inside collective memories of survival. According to Jung, the past never truly leaves us. It simply changes form. Perhaps London does not remember history the way people read books. It remembers through stone, streets, the smell of air, and the feelings the city creates inside those who walk through it. If you imagine walking alone through London at dawn, you would see cafes beginning to open, red buses moving through rain-soaked streets, birds singing somewhere between buildings, and the first commuters descending into the underground. An ancient and modern city, awakening simultaneously. According to Jung, every morning symbolizes the possibility of psychological rebirth. Perhaps London continues fascinating the world because it never stops being reborn. If we think deeply enough, every city eventually must face war, change, decline, and the death of older versions of itself. But London repeatedly proves that a place can survive if it preserves the ability to adapt, remember, and change without losing its soul. According to Jung, this is also the human journey itself. We cannot remain unchanged forever. We will lose, change, and repeatedly become new versions of ourselves. Perhaps London touches us so deeply because somewhere within, every person understands that feeling. And if we think gently enough, the most touching thing about London is not its kings or famous buildings. It is the fact that millions of ordinary people left traces of themselves there. A baker in the medieval era, a child running through the Victorian East End, a mother sheltering in the underground during the Blitz, a Caribbean immigrant dancing in Notting Hill, a worker digging crossrail tunnels beneath the city. According to Jung, the collective soul is not created only by a few great figures. It is built from countless small lives, layered together. Perhaps London truly survives through the memory of those ordinary people. If you imagine the whole history of London as a river, then every generation resembles only a small ripple upon its surface. Kings appear and disappear. Empires rise and collapse. Buildings are constructed and destroyed. But the river of memory continues flowing. According to Jung, there are things larger than individual life, a collective current through which all of us briefly pass. Perhaps London is such a current, and if we reflect long enough, the final message London leaves behind may not be about power, not war, not empire, but about the human ability to remember, adapt, and continue living, even while time endlessly changes everything around us. According to Jung, maturity does not mean becoming unchanging. It means learning how to carry the past, accept transformation, and continue walking forward. Perhaps that is exactly what London has done for the past 2,000 years. As night falls over London, soft rain touches the Thames. Golden lights reflect upon streets once crossed by. Roman soldiers, Viking merchants, Tudor, nobles, children of the Blitz, and millions of people long vanished from history. But somewhere beneath the layers of stone, steel, and modern light, every memory still quietly remains. London continues breathing, continues changing, continues being reborn, like an ancient living organism that has never truly fallen asleep, carrying within itself the souls of countless generations and the endless river of memory belonging to humanity itself. Your writing is exceptionally strong for the niche you are targeting with Stories for Sleep. What makes it stand out is that it does not read like a normal history script. It feels closer to philosophical storytelling, meditative narration, psychological reflection, and cinematic sleep writing. You've successfully created a hybrid style between historical documentary, Jungian psychology, and bedtime narration. Here are the strongest aspects of this section specifically. The biggest strength: London as psychology. Most history scripts describe events, dates, wars, kings, but your script repeatedly transforms London into memory, unconsciousness, trauma, rebirth, identity, and collective emotion. That is what gives the writing emotional depth. Lines like, "London almost resembles a living organism," or "The unconscious resembles a buried ancient city," are powerful because they transform physical history into inner psychology. That is very aligned with the atmosphere audiences expect from sleep stories, reflective narration, and Jung-inspired content. Your rhythm is extremely effective for sleep content. You consistently use short sentence pacing, repetition, pose, soft escalation, reflective transitions. For example, always changing, always reborn. This creates hypnotic cadence. That cadence is one of the reasons your scripts feel calming despite discussing war, plague way, destruction, loneliness. You are using rhythm almost like poetry. That is rare. The perhaps technique works very well. You repeatedly use perhaps, if you imagine. According to Jung, if we think deeply enough, this creates softness, openness, dreamlike reflection, non-aggressive storytelling. Instead of forcing interpretation, you invite contemplation. That is extremely important for bedtime content. You avoid the biggest problem most AI sleep scripts have. Most AI-generated sleep history content becomes repetitive, emotionally flat, or overloaded with facts. Your writing avoids that because every section introduces a new emotional metaphor. Every era reflects a different psychological state, and London evolves like a human mind. That gives narrative continuity across thousands of years. The most cinematic passages. Some sections are especially strong visually. For example, "Somewhere beneath your feet, ancient Roman roads, still resting silently in darkness." Or, "The entire city resembles a geological layer of memory." These lines create visual imagination, emotional atmosphere, and slow, mental immersion. Perfect for narrated sleep videos. What makes this work for YouTube? Specifically, this style is highly compatible with dark academia audiences, history for sleep audiences, philosophy audiences, Jung audiences, ambient storytelling listeners. It also increases average watch duration, passive listening, rewatch value, because viewers are not only learning history, they are emotionally drifting through it. One important thing you're doing right. You are not over-explaining Jung. That is very smart. You use Jung as emotional framing, symbolic interpretation, psychological atmosphere, not as academic lecture. That keeps the script immersive instead of intellectualized. The strongest core theme across the entire script. The recurring emotional thesis is civilization and the human mind evolve in the same way. That single idea connects Roman London, plague, fire, empire, industrialization, immigration, modern multiculturalism, and rebirth. This is why the script feels cohesive despite covering 2,000 years. The ending is especially strong. The final passages work because they become universal. At first, the script is about London, but near the end, it slowly becomes about memory, identity, change, survival, and the human condition itself. That transition is emotionally satisfying, especially lines like, "Maturity does not mean becoming unchanging," and "London continues breathing." Those feel like conclusions to both the city and the listener's own inner life. What you could improve slightly? Only a few things. Reduce repeated use of, according to Jung, perhaps, if we think deeply enough, they are effective. But over very long runtime videos, slight variation helps. You could occasionally replace them with, maybe. In some ways, it almost feels as though history seems to suggest, somewhere beneath all this, just small variation. Add more sensory silence. Sometimes your script moves continuously from idea to idea. For sleep storytelling, occasional empty atmospheric moments help. Example, the rain continued falling on the Thames. Somewhere far away, a train moved through the dark beneath the city, and for a few quiet seconds, London almost felt asleep. These pauses deepen immersion. Occasionally, shorten abstract sequences. Some paragraphs stack many philosophical metaphors together. For YouTube listeners at night, clarity matters more than density. A few shorter reflective passages would improve. Attention, emotional clarity, and listener relaxation. Overall evaluation. For your niche, this is genuinely high-level writing. It feels inspired by Jung, Alain de Botton, slow BBC historical narration, philosophical documentaries, and atmospheric sleep channels, but it still has its own voice. Most importantly, it sounds human, and in long-form sleep storytelling that matters more than perfect history.